I'm interested in what you said with you said like up till 30 you were rock solid, you never really had stress, anxiety issues, and then you did a bunch of mushrooms. Usually
Yeah.
you hear like the Joe Rogan kind of crowd being like, oh, you got to do this to recenter and get your cheat. I don't know the language.
Upgrade your
like,
RPG character permanently.
yeah, something like whatever Joe Rogan would say. So like, what you didn't experience that at all? Did you have a really bad time? And
I mean, I upgraded myself. I unlocked a whole set of feelings and emotions that I didn't know existed. But the problem is a lot of those are negative. So because like up until that, like I'm serious, I've never been depressed or I've never had anxiety. Like I didn't even have a concept of what was out or like anything like that. Basically just like, or go ahead. What were you saying?
No, so I was saying that's wild that you never experienced that. And then was it shortly after you did all the mushrooms you started to experience this?
No, it was like 3 months later, actually. I did, and it almost seems like maybe they were disconnected, but I have a hard time believing that. So basically I had one trip where I'd smoked a bit, I'd eaten some edibles, and I was like, okay, mushrooms must be like weed, I guess, maybe a little stronger. So I ate a stupid amount of mushrooms. And then I had like an unimaginably fucking insane, like life-changing, life-altering trip that is indescribable in any words that I can think of. And then 3 months later, I was downstairs and I was sitting at my desk. And I wish I could describe this better, but I'm sitting at my desk and I'm not doing anything. I have no stress right now. My life is fine. I'm thinking like doing emails or something dumb. And all of a sudden I just feel like this little like, oof, like this little tick. And I'm like, oof, that was weird or whatever. And I remember thinking exactly at that moment that I'd had a friend that had described panic attacks, and we make fun of him all the time for like, you're such a loser who gets panic attacks. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, like, wouldn't that be funny if I was getting a panic attack after making fun of him for years for it? And then in the next second, I was like, yeah. And then in the next second, I was like, oh, something is happening. I wonder if I'm memeing myself into a panic attack. Like, this is really dumb. I'm going to just get up and go upstairs because something is happening. And then the process of me standing up and starting to walk up the stairs, this horrible feeling of dread just like washes over me. And I guess supposedly I was hyperventilating, but I don't remember any of this. I just remember walking up the stairs and feeling absolutely certain that I was about to die. I walked upstairs, I sat on my couch, and it was just the most horrible fucking feeling in the world as I just sat there like staring into nothing, like feeling like so absolutely fucking horrible. And that was like my first ever panic attack, set off by nothing, and just ugh.
Yeah, that sounds awful.
This doesn't sound like an upgrade at all to me. Like,
No,
I
well,
upgraded. I learned about weight gain and gray hair and weakness.
The biggest, I don't know how deep we want to run down the philosophy. The biggest upgrade that I got was in one part of my trip. So there's a feeling called there's a term called ego death. And what ego death is that if you consume enough of certain psychedelic substances, what happens is that you kind of have like an operating system that runs your reality. And if you take enough of a certain drug, you can kind of break down your upper level associations with that. And it gives you the chance to kind of, I'm going to say, step back, but kind of like see like, oh shit, like everything I see normally in life is like super filtered through all of my senses or whatever. I'm trying to explain this in the least like super druggy jerk off way possible, right? But that's essentially what it is. Like imagine you're watching, like your whole life is looking through your phone, and then you have the ability to like kind of like step like a foot back from that and see like, whoa, holy shit, like everything I see is like filtered through this experience, and now I'm breaking that down a little. And I remember that during that experience, there's one part where I'm kind of like sitting down on a couch, and throughout this entire 6-hour trip, I keep having the thought, I did way too many mushrooms. I broke through into figuring out what actual reality is. I wish I could just go back. This is so fucking horrible. I took way too many mushrooms. I didn't want to come here. I made a mistake. I'm actually not ready for the real reality, which is
Took the red pill.
I'm gonna go back and fake. And the one thing that I took away from that trip was that kind of like very visceral thought. I'm a big like debate lord, brainiac, intellectual, whatever, like YouTube, whatever. Going into that trip, prior to that in my life, I always would have thought that like knowledge or intelligence is something that should be desired for sake of itself. Like knowledge is just good by virtue of it being knowledge. And then coming out of that trip, what I realized was, holy fuck, there might actually be some things that even if they're true, I don't know if I would actually want to know them. Like I prefer the fake reality of whatever this life is to the truth reality of like sitting in front of a TV that is the center of the universe that was like mushrooms. So maybe actually knowledge in and of itself isn't good. It's only knowledge that you can acquire that can make you happier. So that was like my big takeaway from that. This is going down a very far road, but that was like my big takeaway from that experience. Yeah.
I love it. Did you have a mushroom tour guide when you took it? Like I'm always told that if you're going to do something like this, you find an expert who makes sure your dosage is right, make sure you have a good experience. Did you do that?
I'm so incredibly arrogant. Okay, I just am very arrogant. My goal was I wanted to have the worst trip possible. So what I did was
All
there were
right.
2 strangers and then a couple of kind of friends that I had. One of which was very persistent. I did it in an unknown environment, and then I took 3 times the recommended like big trip dose to just fucking blast my mind because I was like, I'm probably just gonna get really high. And no, so I didn't have like anything like that. And it was it was the worst possible way that you could approach a trip like that. And because some people will listen to me describe it and like, oh, this sounds cool, like I should do it. If I would have more responsibly kind of dosed myself into having like good trips, I think I could have gotten all of the knowledge that I have now without like all of the horrible mental side effects that I seemed to suffer afterwards for at least a year or two. But yeah,
A year or two. So what would you call this, like 2017?
Fuck, I posted the video of my trip on YouTube somewhere, but I think it was a couple years ago. It was like 2018, 2019. So I'm about 2.5 years, I think, away from that experience right now. Yeah.
Wow. That's heavy.
But like every
I don't
now
want
and then
it.
I'll get like a bout of like I guess so for some examples, there are 3 like distinct things I remember. So in one thing, I had a period of like 3 days. And now this might be where it feels bullshit because I'm tying this back to my mushroom experience. It might not be. Maybe it just randomly happened after I did mushrooms. There was a period of 3 days where I had like what I can only describe as like general anxiety disorder, like this weird general anxiety about the world. I am like a relentlessly confident person. The most I know, I feel very good about myself, my life, and everything. During this 3-day period, I still have the text log. I'm like texting my kid's mom saying like, hey, like I need you to keep my kid away from me for the rest of my life. Like I'm a horrible person. Like don't ever let me see him again. Like, but like I was just like unbelievable. And even looking back on this, like what the fuck is happening to my head? And then I had another like very very short period. It was like 2 or 3 days of like an experience of an absence of desire, which is actually the scariest fucking thing in the world. When you don't want to do anything and you don't have a desire to want to do anything. And I think that these 2 experiences gave me such a new perspective on mental illness. I had so much more respect for people that suffer with that on a daily basis. I've always been a person who it's like, hey, if you're prescribed an SSRI, do that in therapy. You should do whatever, you need to fix your problems, blah, blah, blah. But personally, I would never take an SSRI because like my mind is too strong for that. I don't want to change myself, blah, 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 blah. When I was experiencing like these 2 states, I would have fucking lobotomized myself or taken any fucking drug or done anything I needed to break that. Because like when you're, yeah, it was just a horrible, horrible thing. One of the takeaways I have of like the human mind is I used to think that like 10% of your brain is like this weird underlying, like subconscious mood shit. And then like 90% is like, these are your active thoughts. This is what you have control over. And I totally flipped that in and of itself, like to where now it feels like there's this whole under part of your mind that you are not really aware of. And then you think a little bit on top, but a lot of the credit goes into this lower stuff. And it does you well to understand that because you need to do what you can to fix that stuff rather than just like think like, oh, well, I can just be positive forever and blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
Would you recommend it to people to try hallucinogens, or do you think it was a net negative, at least for you?
I would absolutely recommend it. I'm disappointed that I was 30 before. It's a whole other world. If you do psychedelics, and you should do them responsibly, but when you went on a big trip, it is just nothing will ever. It's like a whole other world. It's the closest it's unbelievable. It's unimaginable. It's unbelievable. It's nothing like being high. It's just like I can't explain it. I can't. For those that have done it, they'll know. And then if you haven't, like, it sounds really stupid. And I mean, like, I hope I'm like,
scary.
It scares the shit out of me. So, like, I feel like 18 out of 20, 19 out of 20 have my shit together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, hey, you want to re-roll? I don't think so. That sounds like a bad idea.
I mean, it's not going to like change you completely. Like, I think I'm more or less the same. Like, if you watch videos of me now and 3 years ago, like I'm still this rambunctious, loud asshole, blah, 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 blah. It gives me more perspective, I guess, which is good. I think gaining more perspective is always a positive. So
what do you know? Joe Rogan knocks it out of the park with his hallucination recommendations.
You know what?
I
like stevia now. That son of a bitch was right about stevia.
Except shrooms aren't even as intense as he goes. Or I don't know the stack ranking of intensity, but he like talks about ayahuasca, which I think is cactus juice that you drink.
A lot of it depends. Yeah, a lot of it depends on dosages and everything as well. Like mushrooms or LSD can be very, very, very intense. Like I'm pretty sure a big mushroom or a big LSD trip can be similar to like a DMT trip, except mushrooms or LSD are worse because because those last 6 hours or 12 hours respectively. Whereas for DMT, it feels like a long time, but 15 minutes and you're in and out. But like, yeah.
Ayahuasca and DMT are not the same thing, right?
I think Correct. DMT is an extract from ayahuasca, isn't it? Am I wrong on that?
I wouldn't.
Oh shit.
Oh, maybe that's how they get it. I thought DMT was its own hyper intense.
They sound totally different.
Yeah,
I'm sure of it.
They are different, you know.
Okay, wait. I'm just now I would sound like full of shit if I said so. Ayahuasca contains large concentrations of DMT, around 80 milligrams per 100 milliliter infusion, and may cause visual hallucination. Blah blah blah. Yeah. So ayahuasca is much different. The experience is a lot different than DMT. Like I think this is like a day-long thing. You like purge from your body, you vomit and all this stuff to do like your big trip. Whereas DMT is generally smoked, and you do like 2 or 3 big hits, and then you have your huge breakthrough moment, and it's like 15 minutes in and out.
I have a couple
Kyle,
friends.
what was that drug we were watching, or all of us, we were watching a long time ago? This drug where people would go into the Amazon and they would like
That's ayahuasca.
Was that
That's
ayahuasca?
it. I have a bunch of friends that have done ayahuasca. It's oddly popular in the paragliding community to do like go places and smoke ayahuasca.
People with so much money, they don't know what to do.
Yeah, Robin Quivers from the Stern Show did it, and she talks about just vomiting a lot.
There's that, but they come back changed, right? They're changed. They like, I have a new thing. I'm ditching social media. I have this broader outlook, love and peace, and I have discovered what life should be about and how persons should be. And now I'm that person. And then 2.5 weeks later, they're the old person.
Yeah. It's just all it
you
is.
You need more ayahuasca.
Yeah, apparently you got to top it off every couple of weeks.
All it is a new perspective. That's it. You can go through it in a crazy experience, and in a week you can get back to normal. Or I like the way that I would describe it is like, imagine if you could go into a room and somebody could show you 5 new colors that you could have never imagined seeing before. Like that's what it's like.
That sounds appealing.
Yeah, but
I like colors.
Can't imagine that. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm doing so well with the color palette I have.
I had a rough time on mushrooms. They caused a panic attack. It was just very stressful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you went to Walmart. That was your bad.
I mean, that seemed like the best place to have a trip.
Oh,
no,
no,
not wrong.
Are you hungry on mushrooms or no?
The people there already look like monsters, though.
You want to be where the other people are tripping, I guess.
Look at these people; they're so hideous. Dude, you're not even tripping yet. This is Walmart.
We're only 5 minutes in, mood. Yeah,
yeah. It was.
And this is the kind of Walmart with a Cracker Barrel in the parking lot. So double dipping.
It has a Sonny's barbecue in the parking lot, actually, which is where we retreated to. It was our safe place.
You know, something with hallucinogens is you never hear about people, or at least I don't, you never hear about people getting addicted to them. Like someone who's addicted to LSD or someone that's addicted to ayahuasca.
No, one of the nice things about psychedelics is that like you can, when you do mushrooms or LSD, those are the 2 I have experience with, or I imagine it's probably the same for DMT and other types of hallucinogenics. Like when you do those and then you're done, you're like, oh, all right, glad I did that. It's not something that it's like, I got to do that again and again and again. It's just not that type of thing. I wish I could describe it better. It's hard to say. It's kind of like, I don't know if I compare it to like swimming across like kind of a scary river. Like it's the water's moving, not so much that you're going to die, but like if you fuck up, maybe you will. And there's like a waterfall over there. So you swim across the river and you make it to the other side and you're like, oh, fuck. Like, that's awesome that I made it. I'm really glad I did it. I had a lot of fun. It was kind of scary. I don't need to do that again and again and again. Like I'm good on that. Like generally people will do it and then maybe like 6 months later, a year, they'll do it. But there are some people who will do it like every week.
Repeatedly. That sounds like I would swimming across dangerous rivers, like I don't know. Defying death. I do that.
How funny would that be?
If you want to feel like you're
addicted to shrooms,
the big mushroom experience, then that might be for you. The thing that I said over and over again while I was tripping, especially in the beginning, next to the guy on the couch, I was begging him over again, like, please don't let me die. Don't let me die. I think I'm dying. Please don't let me die. I said it like a million fucking times. So if a death-like experience is what you're looking for, ego death, literally, you'll have the feeling of being dead. That's really hard to explain, but yeah.
That sounds so scary.